Okay, we're on lesson 126 of the workbook of A Course in Miracles, and it's taken me a little while to be able to do this because, I need to wait for some sort of, I don't know, something to come forth in order for me to talk about these things, because they all seem so very plaintive and so very obvious, and I don't really... I can't do the lessons for anyone. I could only give you the benefit of what I'm given to see and understand based on the lesson that I read. So I read this a few times because when I read it, it's just, yes, incredible. Wow. This is exactly the way it works. And when you work it, you see the truth behind it, and then you understand. And that's just sort of the way I've been operating with the Course since the very beginning when I got it. And it's interesting because this is lesson 126. All that I give is given to myself. The first line, I don't know. I could stay on this first line because it's so telling as to the entire nature of what we're being offered in the Course and the entire way in which we can go about actually entering in or coming to understand what this is all about, and why this first line says what it says, and how applicable it is in relationship to all the lessons and the Course in general, and yet how unlike it many people seem to go. So, it says, all that I give is given to myself. Okay. Today's idea, completely alien to the ego and to the thinking of the world, is crucial to the thought reversal which this Course will bring about. Okay. Obviously. Now, to me, what that's saying is the thinking of the world and the thinking that is fostered by the ego has no ability to help you understand this lesson. Okay? Now, we all have some degree of innate intellect. In fact, we all share the same intellect or ability to understand because we're using the same mind, the same self, which is what this lesson is leading us to. Okay? However, when that intellect is used as a way of identifying with the ego and the thinking of the world, it has no ability to help us understand this lesson. And as a matter of fact, it will constantly thwart the true understanding and the way we get to the true understanding and wisdom that we already have innately, because we share the same self. We share the one mind of God. We share that Christ mind. The Christ mind, through the Holy Spirit, is the answer and holds all the answers as corrections to misperceptions by showing us that we are whole and perfect, and that the questions themselves were false. So the answers that proceed from the question are likewise false. They call that in law the fruit of the poisonous tree. That's the nature of what... Oh man, that's the nature of what we're trying to be told in the Bible by the story of Adam and Eve. We're way back at the beginning now. Which is where we should be. We should be there. We should be back to the beginning to look once again upon everything with these new open eyes that show us that everything, everything that came from that poison moment, none of it's been true. And we can safely let it go because we are true. We are whole. We are perfect. Today's idea, completely alien to the ego and the thinking of the world, is crucial to the thought reversal which this course brings about. Okay, so obviously what it's saying is we have this lesson because the way we have been thinking needs to be reversed. So it makes little sense to try to understand it based on the way we've been thinking, if that makes any sense. And yet, time and time again, the ego co-opts the teaching not by changing the words, but by failing to allow us to see, because we're so habituated to that identification that we don't see we're actually using it to attempt to do the Course in Miracles, and the ego is glad and is most appreciative of our unwillingness to see it, yet it's pointed out in the very first line of this lesson. Oh, heavens. If you, oh my God, forgot the second line. If you believe this statement, there would be no problem in complete forgiveness, certainty of goal, and sure direction. Because we're right back to the initial problem that we have been given in the mythology of the Bible. The fruit of the poison. What the Course deals with it by saying in the Bible, Adam fell into a deep sleep, and there's nowhere in the Bible in which he ever woke up. Adam, it's time to wake up. Oh. You would understand the means by which salvation comes to you and would not hesitate to use it now. I see it, and you gotta laugh. The seriousness that's promoted by the thinking of the world in pursuit of salvation, based on the continuation of the thinking that stems from the fruit of the poison tree, is always thwarting you in your remembering to laugh. Let us consider what you do believe. Oh, yay. Now, this is great, because this is what I've always said, and I got to tell you something. There's things in the 12-step program that are really helpful in the ability for people to really understand or undergo the experience of the reversal of thought. The reversal of thought is an experience. It's an experience. It's not a concept. It's not a concept. It happens as an experience where you see, oh my God, everything I've been thinking has been wrong. None of it's been true because it all stems from an error. So every question that I've asked that stemmed from the error is merely useful in validating the error if I accept an answer anywhere. That's why we have to turn to the Spirit of Wholeness, the Holy Spirit, who constantly reminds us that the questions are not valid because they're based on the fruit of the poison tree. So there's this thing in the 12-step where you really do need to make some fundamental admission. I mean, the fundamental admission that this is asking you to make is contained in these paragraphs. That's why give you the answer as the experience, but you can accept the answer if you can accept that the voice that is speaking to you through the words of A Course in Miracles knows you perfectly well. Don't deny this. If you deny any part of it, you deny the entirety of it. If you believe this, you must believe this Course in the entirety, or you believe it not at all. And it's all right here, right now. It's not later on. There's no such thing as later on. Salvation is here and now. Let's consider what you do believe. Consider what you do believe in place of this idea. It seems to you that other people are apart from you and able to behave in ways which have no bearings on your thought, nor theirs on yours. Therefore, your attitudes have no effect on them, and their appeal for help are in no way related to your own. A person becomes a teacher of God when they accept that their welfare and the welfare of their brother are one and the same thing. Do you know, take it, listen. Do you know how many of the world's problems would be solved instantaneously if everybody sat down and said, wait a second, the welfare of my brother and my welfare are one and the same thing? Because what I'm doing to myself. It seems that therefore your attitudes have no effect on them, and their appeals for help are not in any way related. She said, as a teacher of God, teacher of God sees that his concerns and his brother's concerns are one and the same concern. We're all concerned about the same thing here. That's why you have to go past the form to the content of the concern. The content of the concern is broken down in A Course in Miracles. Everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to be happy. Why in the world would anyone do anything in this world other than they want to be happy? Now, we may have been going about it all the wrong way, but when we get to the lowest common denominator, we begin to see that's what this is trying to get us back to the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator here is going to be we share oneself. All that I give is given to myself because in the sense there is only that self, the whole perfect self that we share as the Christ mind, in the Christ mind, with God and with all our brothers. You further think that they can sin without affecting your perception of yourself, while you can judge. And this, I think, is an important aspect. This is one of the things that I wanted to get to. I'm not going to belabor this lesson because I'm going to laugh my way through it. This is what I think people miss when they hear the word judgment and the ego's attempt to interpret it, to remove it from the ability to help correct yourself and offer your brother a corrected self, a healed mind. Not how you heal his mind, but how your mind is healed. Listen. You further think that they can sin. Now you hear that word sin. Remember the word sin. Without affecting your perception of yourself, while you can judge, hear the word judge, sin, judge, their sin, and yet remain apart from condemnation. That's what we're talking about. When we talk about judgment and we talk about sin, we're talking about it in the relationship it has to condemnation. The condemnation we feel in our mind, and therefore the condemnation that we hold our brother to. The idea that I wear a purple shirt or maroon shirt and you wear a red shirt is not what judgment is. It has to do with the condemning aspect of our thinking that our brothers are not saved because of any reason. The way they're thinking, the way they're not thinking, anything. Everyone here has already been saved. I'm sure that everyone here is innocent, okay? I condemn no man because I know I'm not condemned by God. That's what I learned in the revelation with God. God is love, therefore so am I, therefore everyone else. It doesn't matter whether they think it, how they think it, whatever. Now, this is going to offer us a new way to think. We're back to the first line. Completely alien to the ego and the thinking of the world. It is crucial to the thought reversal which this course brings about. It's a mistaken way of thinking, not a mistaken self. Hence the whole section in the course where it talks about the difference between a self and a self-concept. Hence the confusion when people begin to have their concepts questioned and confusing the concepts being questioned with the self. Is this making any sense? I know I'm a little whatever I am today. This is a passionate plea, I suppose. You're not your concepts. Concepts are all fruits of the poisoned tree. They can be used when they're being used by in the right mind to express truth, but there'll never be any truth in the concepts. That's why it says salvation can be seen as release from concepts. It doesn't say salvation can be seen as release from the bad concepts as opposed to the good concepts. Concepts themselves are blocks to the experience, to the awareness, to the certainty, to the knowing, to the knowledge, to the wisdom, to the reality of the self. That self remains inviolate, invulnerable, whole and perfect. That's why that one lesson says let go of everything, even the concepts you get from the course. Because keeping it at the level of intellectual concepts is exactly what the thinking of the world and the ego is asking you and begging you to do in order for you not to go any further. Everything here is a double-edged sword, except the atonement, and it's only not a double-edged sword when you choose to use it. It's not a double-edged sword, but it must be chosen freely by you to use. And what would the atonement be other than we are at one with each other when we get down to fundamental basic admissions and when we get to that lowest common denominator? Do you want to be right or happy? That's where it operates. That's where that operates. You could be right about all the concepts in the course. You could be right about the right ones and you could be right about the wrong-minded ones. So what if you're not happy? The happiness and joy is in the release and the letting go of all concepts, not the maintenance of the concepts. That's what maintains the thinking of the world, and that's what keeps the ego in play. When you forgive a sin, there is no gain to you directly. This is where we're talking about, the idea that forgiveness is for someone else and I have to forgive someone else is ridiculous. I have to forgive, as Jesus says, what I have made them into. Now, there's no way in the world I could convince them that I haven't made them into the self-concepts that they're using. But I'm certain that behind my concepts, their concepts, there's a reality. That reality is whole and perfect. I know of it because I was shown it, and it destroyed my ability to accept any concepts as being real. Not as being true as opposed to false in that realm, because some concepts are true and other concepts are false. Some concepts are useful in finding the truth, other concepts are meaningless. But the finding of the truth is the release from the concepts. True concepts will point the way to the true way of finding the real self. And we share that one self. So when I give it to myself, when God gave me the ability to have himself revealed to me, I saw what we all are, and I was no longer confused about the possibility of there being anything else. That's why truth is true, and what isn't true doesn't exist. If something can be threatened, it's not true. Love is all there is, all there's ever going to be. Everything can be utilized through the conversion of our mind, the reversal of our mind, and allowing, like Jesus, take it into yourself, convert it, and give it back as love. You can give your brother anything when you recognize that it's all just love. It's a single substance of reality. Here in space and time, it's broken down and we define it into different pieces and different parts, and we attempt to look for the solution to lack in the giving of the pieces and the parts rather than the wholeness of our own mind, in the expression of the fact that I know what love is because I know what God is, I know what I am, and you cannot not be separate from that. You cannot not be included. You must be included in what everything is. It's just, it's impossible any other way. I think I've belabored this too much already. Forgiveness becomes unsound because you think that when you forgive, the world's version of forgiveness is, I'll forgive them, but they're going to keep on doing the same thing over and over again. Who but thinks that but you? Who gives meaning to what it is they're doing? Now, that doesn't mean, and there's much of the course that will address this, that you don't see that. It just means that you don't accept it as anybody's reality. How else could mistakes and errors be corrected other than by the seeing of them and the ability to see ourselves in that mistake and free ourselves, thereby offering our brother the freedom that we're experiencing? I can't make the correction. That's made by the Holy Spirit. I could offer the ability to see the correction. What's wrong with that? That's help. You take the knife away from the kid when he's running around the kitchen and doesn't know what the hell's going to happen if he falls on it. Whatever. Yet it remains your right to let the sinner not escape from his justified payment for his sin. Think you, the Lord of heaven, would allow the world's salvation to depend on this? Would not his care for you be small indeed if salvation rested on your whim? You do not understand forgiveness as you see it. It is but a check over overt attack without requiring correction in your mind. It cannot give you peace as you perceive it. It is not a means for your release. That's why the simplicity of this becomes, if you are utilizing this book and have yet to have the experience, the admission that you have yet to have the experience is the admission that you haven't followed the directives in the book yet. And that, in that fundamental admission, if you hold your mind there, instead of trying to escape it through justifications, that's what it talks about. When it says, don't justify your thoughts. When Jesus talked about, don't justify your thinking. Don't justify it and allow yourself to slip off of it by trying to prove it's true in the intellect by concept. Stay in that action of fundamental admission. He talks about that with his peace. You can say you want peace, but the fact that you mean it comes when the meaning of peace is discovered in the action of it. And when the experience of peace comes, you know you've wanted peace. That's the back door. We talk about that as the back door. It's an action of mind, not a concept. Nothing is the definition of it. Today, we try to understand the truth that the giver and receiver are the same. You will need help to make this meaningful because it is so alien to the thoughts by which you have got accustomed to. Let that be true. Don't let that slip away. Well, I've been a course student for 30 years, and I've been reading this, and I'm really working toward peace. And I was a student of Ken Wapnick, and I've been a student of this one, and someday I'll find peace because I'm studying this enough. No, you'll never find peace that way without the fundamental admission that, wait a second, I'm being offered peace right now. I must not be meeting the conditions in my own mind, because if I met the conditions for just a second, a holy instant would occur, and everything in my life would change, and the world would change around me. I'm sorry if I belabored this, but I'm passionate about this. I want you to come and discover that God is love, and therefore so am I, and you've never been absent from love. And that nothing, the fruit of the poisonous tree, we're so far removed from it. That's That's why most people, when you ask them how they feel, they tell you how they think. They're removed from that spot where the correction could do most benefit. So we have to go level by level by level by level, sink down there. You're only going to be healed of as much fear as you're willing to let go of in the limitations that you put on yourself to not be fearful. You're only going to be healed of fear based on the limitations that you lay upon yourself. In your unwillingness to be totally without fear. Because in this world it says fear is a good thing and we need it to get by because we got to know what to protect ourselves against. What if all of it's just a fruit or a poisonous stream? There's nothing to protect yourself against because deep inside there's an innocence that can be discovered in your own invulnerability. And you could look upon your brothers with the eyes of Christ and see that in them as well and offer them the space wherein which they can discover it because you've discovered it in your mind. Giving and receiving are one in truth. Whatever I